So do you guys know the macromolecules? Like if you're in nutrition or at a gym, they're like, do you track your max or macros or anything like that? Nothing? You're not hanging out with them?
Carbs.
Okay. So that is one of them, carbohydrates.
Oils.
So another word is lipids or fats. So oils is a good one. So that's up here. There's another commonly tracked one. Yeah. You're good at this game. The other fourth one that we're not really going to go over to in this section is nucleic acids. And no one says that. So do you know what nucleic acids would be? Well, I was like, it's DNA and RNA. So we're going to do that in chapter 4, or unit 4. So we're not gonna. So we use it too. We go from DNA to RNA to protein, but viruses mostly use RNA to code for their proteins. So yeah, it's good. It's a single-stranded DNA that uses a different alphabet, but it's fine. Okay. So this one's not usually tracked quite so much, but there is a non-big molecule. So macromolecule means big molecule, right? And so we just went over that a molecule is 2 or more atoms linked together, bonded together. So this is a really big molecule. And the nucleic acid counts as one of the classic examples of having our double helix. But then proteins, lipids, and carbs are also really big, and we're going to go over their structure. Oh, sorry. I'm pretty sure they are macromolecules or carbohydrates. I feel like all of them should be in there.
Okay,
so we're going to go over them in slow motion. So carbohydrates, we have carbo, and what is that? Okay. So bread, pasta, but it's also like almost the whole word of carbon, right? So carbo, carbon, and then hydrate would be the water. So these are made out of water and carbon, basically, because they're only C's, O's. So carbohydrates are built out of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. But you guys had good ideas of what they were, and on the other page we wrote down sugar. So now I'm just going to give you some ugly words. So they're also called saccharides.
That's just another type of sugar, isn't it?
It's just another word for sugar. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know, like, when they have the sugar substitutes, you've got saccharin and I can't remember the other two. There's 2 other sugar substitutes.
Yeah. So I don't know anybody but science that uses like the term saccharide as its unit for sugar. Everybody else usually says sugar. But when somebody's saccharin sweet, they're like sugary sweet, and they're not being sincere. They're just overly nice. So it can be kind of an insult that way. But I don't know anybody that like just goes around saying saccharide. But maybe you run in like more intellectual groups. I don't know that you know, read the labels and use the words off the label.
Because when I was looking at
Well, aspartame, I think, is sweet and low, and it's dangerous. So, I don't know. I don't know what study they were looking at, but it is kind of dangerous. So, I'm not sure there, there's not, I wouldn't make a recommendation at this time for any fake sugars. So, okay, saccharides is just another word for sugar, but we kind of need to understand saccharides, carbohydrates, sugar, C's, O's, and H's, but then have the practical, like, what those are. So carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. So They are carbohydrates, so that should help you remember that they're C's, O's, and H's, because hydration would be water, which is just hydrogen, oxygen, and carbons. So that hopefully helps memorize that. Other really classic examples of carbohydrates would be like rice, or I was writing candy. So sugary candy. I'm not thinking like a Snickers bar that has just a little bit of everything, protein, lipid, and sugar. I'm thinking like
Cinnamons.
Well, like this, that's just a like little cinnamon discs or spearmint discs, like I don't know what they call them. Butterscotch discs, straight up candy sugar. So you brought some sugar, like sticks, like whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Pixie sticks, Fun Dip. Those are all basically pure sugar. Cotton candy. Those kinds of candies are just carbohydrates. Okay, any other really good examples of carbs? If somebody's carb loading. Yeah, I was like, I guess we can, mac and cheese, I guess is, like cheese does include the lipids, but, oh yeah. So we put bread, but tortillas. Okay. So, now we want to kind of draw them. Okay, so we have carbohydrates and we want to draw out the actual chemical structures. So, that we have just a general idea, and then I'm going to flip to much prettier pictures of them. Okay, so oftentimes I will just draw a ring like this, and these are all carbons, and we just kind of leave them off. So it's a ring of carbons,
And then you have your zero.
and then we have, it's not a zero, it's an oxygen.
That's right.
Yeah. Does that make sense? So it is a ring. So this would be glucose. And then if I draw just the 5, it is fructose. And we didn't put that on our list, but fruit has a lot of fructose in it. So pears, watermelon. Oh, so well, a lot of time, yeah, I was like, what do you mean fake fruit? But yes, I wasn't referring to like fruit flavoring in something else, like grape Jello doesn't actually have grapes in it, or something like that. But then you mentioned like canned good fruits, or if it comes in the prepared cups, sometimes they will say that they're stored in juice. So then there's nothing added like extra sugars and stuff like that. But some of it's like almost candied. It's in like a syrup. So they'll say like light syrup or heavy syrup. And those are not just fruit. So it's corn syrup or some other kind of syrup preserving them. But it's all carbs. Just different types of sugars are being used. So fructose is what's inside the natural fruit. But most likely what we're looking at there is sucrose. It's preserved in sucrose, or table sugar.
Is that sucrose or glucose?
So this one, so inside of the canned goods, it would be probably some kind of simple syrup like sucrose, which is just mixing water with table sugar.
What I'm saying
So
is,
yes, so right here, totally different conversation. This is glucose and this is fructose.
Okay.
So different, but I don't want to flip screens here until we go that these are monosaccharides. So this is a unit of 1. So mono being 1. Just one ring of sugar. Yeah, so it's just one ring of sugar.
What about the glucose? Is that on the inside?
So this is a generic glucose molecule. This is a generic fructose molecule. And I'm going to go and show you the actual. I'm sorry, I think the internet is kind of saddened by my math use of technology here. So, and this whole time it's been pointing at me weird. Okay,
What's isomers?
So, similar, like same chemical formula, different forms. So, like they're mirrored or something like that. Okay, so I am trying. Okay, so we said it was C's, O's, and H's, and I will never remember, just out of my memory bank, where all the H's are. So I just draw the ring, the carbon ring, and the oxygens. But here's where all the O's and H's are. So you'll see a whole bunch of hydroxide ions, or OH groups, and those tend to get along well with water. Okay, so they're slightly charged and they get along with water molecules. So we want to remember for future reference that sugar molecules and water get along. And we can kind of remember that by, hopefully in childhood we made some kind of sugary drink like Kool-Aid or something like that. So after much stirring, because it's like a whole cup of sugar in 2 quarts, which is a lot of sugar. So it was vigorous stirring, but it would absorb, right? So sugar gets along with water. But when we put table sugar in, what I was saying was that it's not glucose, it is sucrose. Hopefully you understand. So sucrose is, here, this one actually labels it. It is a glucose molecule, like where it's recording, but so it will be somewhat off screen. But we have a fructose bonded with a glucose, and that is classic table sugar, which is sucrose. So if you just went and got a 10-pound bag of sugar off the grocery shelf, that's what this is. And glucose. And you'll notice that they're bonded with an oxygen. So this is a disaccharide, or 2 simple sugars stuck together with. So we will show you in a bit like how that bond is made. Okay, so we have monosaccharides and disaccharides. There's another famous disaccharide. I don't know that I said anything really important, so we'll just put up another image. This is lactose. So lactose is another really famous disaccharide, and it's glucose and galactose. And I'm not sure that's as meaningful as knowing that you either have an enzyme that will break these 2 sugars apart and allow you to digest it nicely, or your body gets kind of unfriendly because it doesn't have that enzyme, and so you get gassy, bloated, sometimes diarrhea or other bad abdominal distress from this. Okay, we good there? So lactose is a disaccharide, but also, just like if you want to just associate it with a sugar.
Oh, see now lactose.
Right, so milk. You can't drink milk and creams, anything that's unprocessed. So usually people that are lactose intolerant can handle like yogurt because they've already, like the bacteria and fungus have already like gobbled up the thing. So cheese with small exposures isn't as bad. Ice cream's terrible, right? So like, because nothing broke down that sugar yet. Like it's straight up cream that's just had extra sugar and coldness added to it. That's all that milk like happens in ice cream. So ice cream and straight up milk tend to be fairly bad, but milk in the form of cheese or yogurt isn't quite as bad for them, usually. But you can be very sensitive and very lactose intolerant or dairy intolerant, so hopefully.
A little bit.
Yeah, but even if you overdose on cheese, it gets real bad. Yeah.
I'm lactose.
Intolerant. So you'll remember that that is a sugar, so a disaccharide. Okay. So then we can get even bigger with what they call a polysaccharide. So poly means many. And so I'm not going to attempt to draw it. I'm just going to pull it up here. And you have a whole bunch of glucose molecules attached together, but again, you'll see that oxygen in between each one of the attachments. So polysaccharide means that these long chains form together. So starch is in what? we didn't write that down on our list. So they do have starch in those, yeah. And I was thinking of plants. So, yeah, what plants are super starchy? So corn, potatoes, right? Like potatoes are very, very starchy, and even some things like peas have quite a bit of starch in them. So polysaccharide, C-C-A-R-I-D, polysaccharides. And there's other polysaccharides that we want to show. Yeah, it's like, well, okay. It's like a goth Christmas, but okay. Maybe like it's candy cane stripe. But there's no green.
Was orange, it might have been Halloween.
Yeah. So, but red and white, I see the red and whiteness. But then, maybe like Santa Claus just went down the chimney too many times and got too much carbon on. Okay, so these are long structural carbohydrates. So this is cellulose. We don't make it, but plants do. So it makes their cell walls and gives them a lot of strength and toughness. So when you accidentally forget to water a plant for a really long time, it will wilt, but then it usually pops back into shape once you water it again. So, but it doesn't like just collapse usually. So the structural integrity of cellulose is what gives them their strength. And it is used for, that purpose. Mostly is just structure. So it's insoluble fiber for the most part. So a panda has to eat a ton of bamboo to get any nutrition from it, and a cow has to have 4 stomachs to digest the cellulose in grass. So yeah, it's very tough to break down. It's mostly not built for energy release, but built for structural integrity of the plant itself. So starches release a lot better for energy, but cellulose is hard. Hard to get at. So it's not so much a sugar for energy. But
Can you imagine the constipation?
Well, we would get constipated if we ate a lot of grass. I think cows have no problems. I mean, it doesn't seem like, it feels like they poop a lot. So, yeah. I have never seen what a panda poo looks like, but I imagine it's big. Anyway, lots of fiber. Lots of fiber. I hope that they keep themselves hydrated. I don't know if older pandas have problems with constipation or not. I haven't asked anybody. Okay, so we have monosaccharides, disaccharides, and then many saccharides, which is polysaccharides. There's also some called oligosaccharides, and I do not really focus on them, but they are called oligo, O-L-I-G-O, oligosaccharides. So I can pull that up so you see it written. O-L-I-G-O. And, I mean, it's hard to, like, show what sparse looks like. So, here. This is a pretty good image. So, it means sparse sugar. So, they're just, like, in between. It's not 1, it's not 2, and it's not many. It's, like, in that sparse in between. So, they can be, like, cell identifier tags on the surface of a cell or something like that. Kind of a rarer use of sugar is what that means. I will not ask for that definition or anything, but here are some examples. And they have neat names, so that's something that you would usually hear. But raffinose, 4'-galactosyl lactose. It sounds like it's from another planet. It's very cool. Very sci-fi sugar here. Okay. So there's one polysaccharide that is important for us. So we mentioned starch and cellulose, and we do not make them, but we do make glycogen. So I want to pull up just an image of glycogen, and this looks so freaking cool. I'm just going to go with that. It does look like a maze. And I feel like we shouldn't just make it pretty like that, but it's almost kind of confusing because it looks like it is both a protein and a sugar in that picture, but I think it's not going to get big or pretty. We'll go here. I feel like this one just keeps it clean. Okay, keeps it clean, and just remember that it is not a protein, and it's probably not confusing to you yet because I haven't shown you proteins. But glycogen, it's really important because just like cellulose and starch in plants, when we have a lot of sugar in our bloodstream from the food that we've eaten, we make glycogen and we shove it in our muscles. So we can regulate our blood sugar, which is super important to our health. We can regulate it if we have muscles to put away the glycogen. So if we don't have strong muscles or big muscle mass, then we have less storage capacity for glycogen. So it's really important to strength train for things like diabetes and blood sugar regulation. You want to make sure. Glycogen. Glycogen. It is not a protein, it is a polysaccharide or a sugar. Okay, so those ones are important for us as humans. So animals make glycogens as their polysaccharide, and plants make starch, which is storage for like food source later use.
That's why we use
Lots of
spaghetti.
carbs, yeah. So a lot of people do that. They call it carb loading or whatever. But yeah, eat a big plate of spaghetti the night before a race or afterwards to rebuild all the glycogen stores inside your muscles. So it's just important to remember that fructose is the plant sugar, like that came from fruits and stuff like that. So you can't do carb loading with fructose because these molecules of glycogen are built from glucoses. So you need something like the pastas. You just, like the only thing that really doesn't work is just straight up fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's really not good pasta.
But strength training is good, and putting the glycogen inside your muscles is good. Okay, so